Welcome to the Girl Crush podcast with me, Donna Pesci. I created this podcast to encourage, inspire, and empower women to dream big and live with purpose, passion, and joy. I'm fortunate enough to have interesting, authentic, and sometimes really funny conversations with amazing women who are just crushing it at life. You'll meet entrepreneurs, CEOs, healers, creators, artists, mystics, and moms. We'll talk about everything from the decisions that shape our lives to the moments that make us laugh out loud. We'll chat, we'll examine, we'll even gossip a little. I'm so glad you're here, and I can't wait to hear what you think. Okay, today we are speaking with Lalka Morales, a luxury travel consultant with Lux Travel Group, a boutique travel agency specializing in the VIP experience. One might say that her Brooklyn-born multicultural upbringing cinched her career in travel, but Lalka has also had a remarkable career in the event industry, where she produced shows for Ralph Lauren, Google, New Balance, NBC Universal, and many more. She was also a very successful entrepreneur, so successful, in fact, that she started a business from scratch and built it into an organization she later sold in one of the toughest times our country has ever seen. It's such a great story, and I can't wait to get into it. Thank you so much for joining me, Lalka.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to reconnect via podcast. I love it.
I know, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see you actually in the flesh and not just on the phone. I'm so happy to have you here. So I want to just get right into it. You currently have what I think most people would consider a dream job. So I want you to tell me a little bit about your career as a luxury travel consultant. Like, what does that mean? What do you do for your clients? And what does your kind of day to day look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am based in DC and I work for Lux Traveler Club. It is a phenomenal luxury travel agency. So I am an advisor. And what that means is I work with my clients to pretty much curate phenomenal travel itineraries. It can be as simple as one night, a fun long weekend, a 7-week cruise, 2 weeks in Japan, 30 days all over the world. Whatever it is that you can think of, I can definitely assist. I think the misconception as an advisor that people had back in the days was, someone behind a typewriter with a pencil in their hair, trying to, you walk into an agency to figure it out. It's a little bit more curated. It's 2023. So we are able to connect with every single general manager at the hotels, work with all our different vendors, suppliers, people that are destination managers, meaning they're on the ground in those specific cities and countries to help us find out what's the best restaurant, which is the hotel that they would love, that they would have amazing experience. Is it a boutique place? Is it something that has a massive golf course? So every client has so many different needs. So putting together these itineraries to curate something that's unique and special, anywhere from honeymoons to weddings, just weekend getaways with families, loved ones. It's nice to have a partner where you can feed off ideas, let them know that what you want to see, what you want to experience. I think it's really hard these days to go online. Everyone's excited because you're able to book these on your own, but you have no idea what these reviews mean. Do you have something in common with Susie over in California? Is it a robot? So having that human contact, I think, is crucial. Plus, with our connections and being able to offer VIP amenities with upgrades and early check-ins, and credit at the bars and spas. And just being able to connect with all the hotels and tour guides and transportation, I think is crucial. It's really scary when you book online and you're like, all right, I hope this is going to work out. Let's see. And you don't find out until you get there. So it's a big investment. And I think time has changed where you want to work with a professional, because you are investing a lot in these trips.
And you actually go and see a lot of these properties because I know I follow you and I see that you're like always traveling and actually physically there at these amazing properties and actually experiencing it for yourself. So it seems like you have personal knowledge of what you're doing or
Yeah.
what you're booking people at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, why I got into this industry is because I have been traveling since I'm a baby. And I say that literally because I still have my passport as a baby. My parents threw me on a flight on my way to Peru, and I was only 1 years old. So I have multiple passports. I've been traveling my whole life, and it's something that I love to do personally. But now having it as part of my job and being in the industry, it's just kind of advanced at where my travel, maybe it wasn't every 3 months. Now it's pretty much trying to go every month so that I can see what's out there. There's so many new hotel openings. There's so many cities that have grown and changed. So it's really wonderful when a hotel or a tourism board city invites you so that you can scout out these places. I will say the one thing that is we can all agree on is travel has changed post COVID. But I also think that it's ever changing, meaning something could be amazing 2 months ago. It's very different today. Something was great 3 years ago, but it's different today. And so keeping up with all the travel trends is crucial. So I personally go to a lot of the spots. I just came back actually from a 2 week amazing trip in Japan to scout out different hotels all over. So 6 cities throughout
Amazing.
Japan. And I think it's great because I can connect with my clients and they say, "Oh, have you been there before?" And I'd be like, "Yes, I have. I love this. I love this." And so I can curate these itineraries. Is this for a family? Is this a romantic weekend? Is this for, maybe an elder couple who doesn't want to hike? They're looking for something a little more relaxing at a spa. So it's nice to see it and experience it. But the great thing is, I also have destination managers in every city and country. So I'm able to seek advice, ask them for their input because they're on the ground. As much as I'd love to be in every single city, every country, I just don't think there's enough time.
Yeah, but I mean, how great that you still, that you love travel so much and you get to do that as much as you do. I mean, I think that's just that's so much fun. And you said that you were basically born into traveling. So did you always just love travel, like even as when you were young?
Yeah, and I think, when you're a kid, you don't appreciate it. Your mom and
Right.
dad, or your parents are like, "All right, let's go." You're like, "Again, what are we doing?" So I think you get to appreciate it more and more the older you get, but you don't realize those experiences when you're growing up actually do hit you later on. It's one of those where I actually can remember these childhood memories of getting on the flight with my family, packing my luggage when I was 6 or 10. And at the time, I wasn't sure where I was going, what I was doing. I had no interest, and you just want to hang out with your friends. I think now look back at all those trips, and I'm so thankful for it. I'm fortunate because I had parents who were multicultural backgrounds. So my mom was born in Poland and my father was born in Peru. So I was able to kind of get their love for travel, see Europe, see South America. And once that started, I think that put the bug in me. I also studied abroad in London when I was in college. And I think that was the big kicker. That was something where you're doing that on your own. You don't have your parents, you're packing yourself, you're meeting strangers, you're going to another country, and you're just putting yourself out there. So I will say the study abroad in college, which I encourage everyone to do, that has kids or are asking me how was that experience. I think that was the one that set me to it was kind of no point of return with the travel. Once I did that, it didn't stop. So post graduation, I went to Australia for 4 months and I
Wow.
relaxed, and then I was like, all right, let's see what's happening in Australia, and then it hasn't stopped since. So it's something that I encourage everyone to do. I know sometimes not everyone can travel as often, but even if it's that one big trip a year, it's something that you get to learn about different people, different cultures, and there's so much beauty out there. So I'm always talking and loving talking about travel. So it's something that I think is instilled with me. I'm fortunate to have my parents, but again, if you didn't travel when you were growing, that's fine too because it's never too late.
No, absolutely. And I think the age that when you first start to travel makes a difference too, because I remember being in my maybe 20s, maybe still like 19. And I had never been out of the country. I mean, maybe I went to like Mexico, on like a spring break or something, but um, I remember going on a trip with my aunt and uncle, and we went to we were on a boat, and we sailed like on this small little chartered boat in all the little islands in the Caribbean. And I don't mean like the big islands, like the little tiny little islands. We would
I love that.
sail, and then we would wake up and be in a new place, and we would get
Yeah.
off and explore the island. And I remember I even at that age, didn't appreciate what it was doing for me. But I think that that started kind of my love of travel because I was like, I don't I never even thought about doing something
Yeah,
like this, and I didn't even
right.
realize that this was like part of the world. I mean, I did, but I didn't.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
So, and I think, and then I traveled with them quite a bit actually. Like they were the first people to take me to Italy, and I went to a lot of different places with them, and it's because of that I had a love for travel.
Yeah,
And then when my daughter was, growing up, I was like, I wanted to show her that,
yeah.
I wanted her to have it. And now she has been way more places than I have. She is always traveling and
I
she
love it.
has that love of travel and she wants to see the world. And I love that. Like, I just
Yeah,
think that that's like so, amazing. And you're right. We should all be out there
yeah,
doing it because it's so worth it.
yeah,
You
it's
learn so
true.
much and you see so much, and I think it changes you sometimes as a
Yeah.
person to just be a part of other cultures and see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think the one thing that people forget, you can read something, you can see a picture, you can watch it on TV, you can learn it in school, or you can learn it in conversations, but being there is so much more powerful and so different. And it's you can't even put it in words. It's like when you show a friend a photo that you took and you're like, "It's beautiful, see it?" And they're like, "Oh, that's pretty." You're like, "No, no, no, it's really gorgeous." They you don't know that until your eyes see that, until you taste, that bite of pasta in Italy or that gelato. It's that experience. It's almost all the senses. And as much as you're trying to describe it verbally or written, it just doesn't capture it. So sometimes I'm always like, go, trust me. It's when you do this, this, and this, you'll see it. And I think those who love the travel, they do that once. And I have clients calling on repeat. They're like, what's next? Let's do this. And they want an every 3 month, let's do this once a quarter. We'll make time for it because they experienced it and they can see that, oh, that country did that. I'm curious what this place would do. So it's really, I love talking about it because I'm a big promoter of let's travel, let's look at other countries, and let's meet different types of people. I think my conversations I've had are just some of the most powerful abroad.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I mean, when you're actually there and or in another country and you're speaking to somebody that um lives there and they're explaining their culture and every time we travel anywhere, I'm definitely a planner, so I always have kind of everything, very
Yep.
planned out. But I always leave a couple of days with absolutely no plans
So
because
smart.
I feel like when you're there and you talk to people, the
Yes.
local people, they'll say, "Oh, well, you should do this or you should do that." And
Yes.
those are always the best days. Those are always the best
Yes.
restaurants. Those were always the best,
Yes.
sights to see and things to do. So it sounds like that's what you're kind of filling in those blanks for your clients. And I think
Yeah,
that's great.
absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%. I love that you said that out loud is I leave gaps in my schedule. I would be lying to say when I get on these like new client calls or, next trip planning sessions and they're like, okay, fill my itinerary every single hour. And it's, you'll have that struggle where it's like, well, I don't think you should. Let's do a break here. You're gonna need to relax. And, my thing that I always tell my clients is I don't want you to leave a vacation feeling like you need another vacation. That's my goal
That's good
because
advice.
it is so stressful when you're like, did I have vacation? I just took a week off and I'm exhausted. It's not to say travel doesn't do that in general because of the commuting and the flying and the moving of the luggage or moving hotels or different cities. That alone is a lot. So then when you jam pack every single day, you don't get to experience it. I also think having the days in between to process what you did yesterday. Because if you're going on a hike every single day or touring every single day, it you don't get to it doesn't hit you until you come back. And that's why I think that exhaustion hits. So having those breaks, and I say some of my most favorite days of my personal travel is just walking around, stumbling into that amazing cafe shop, walking around into an artist store that I just happened to go down this little alley, and meet someone special. And I end up spending an hour there and buying amazing gifts for family and friends. So those are the moments that are you can't plan and you have to walk in. So fortunately for me, I've experienced a lot of that. And we have a lot of the managers at these places who we can curate those moments in if you don't have it. And I think that to me is really special.
That's amazing. That's such great advice. Yeah, absolutely. So I know that you got this job in travel kind of a little bit later. You did these other things that I really want to get into, but how did you get this job? How and what would be your
Yeah.
advice for somebody that maybe wants to get into a career in travel?
I think that I was very fortunate because when I was owning my company in South Tampa, I was in a completely different industry. I had a friend who mentioned that she was connected with a luxury travel advisor. And at that time, I was like, a travel agent? I'm not sure what you mean, because it just wasn't a conversation that many people have. A lot of people
Hmm.
these days were like, no, I book my own trips. I'm trying, I do something online, and they didn't realize they were missing that experience, that kind of human connection, that special touch, that VIP upgrade, that amenity, whatever that is. That makes you so excited when you get there, and someone that's a professional can plan it. So I was fortunate enough to have a friend put me in touch with them. And so I was still owning my business. I just put my company on the silent market and that I wanted to sell. And so her and I had coffee, and I remember her telling me everything and anything about the industry. She's been in it 12 plus years, how much she loved it, how she got into it. And I was just amazed. I'm like, wait, so you book travel and you travel the world? I was like, that sounds like my dream job. And so I shared a lot of my travel stories, connecting with people and how much I love it. And she was like, "This is the perfect industry for you. I think this might be your next career." And so I was like, "Well, we'll see." I own a company. I'm still in the process of selling it. But I am definitely interested. So I think that was the kickoff point. It was having that conversation with another advisor, guiding me through, like, what is this process? And I think this selling point was just seeing her so happy for so many years in a career that she loved and she was proud of, to still be able to travel solo or with her husband or with her family. So I love that aspect of it, of having just so many different trips, because the experiences are different when you're doing it alone, when you're doing it with other advisors or with family. But I think the thing that resonated the most to me is she loved the fact that she was able to curate these amazing itineraries for her clients and seeing the joy after. And, encouraging them to make that leap, try that country, try that restaurant. I think you should do this. You're going to love it. And so having that connection with the client, knowing what they love to do and fulfilling that and putting those experiences together, to me was just amazing, where you could plan a trip for someone doing a hiking in Machu Picchu. They're like, oh, I want to do it, but I don't know where to start. I think everyone needs that little push. And so when you work with a luxury advisor, you're able to connect with them and tell them, hey, this is the process. Let me walk you through it. Don't be scared. I think a lot of people don't travel because they are scared of, well, how long is that going to take? Or I only have 3 days, or my kids are in school. And so a lot of things get pushed off. So having that assistance is definitely beneficial. And so when she shared the experiences and the stories from her clients, that was pretty much it. I was sold. I was like, all right, I got to dive deeper into this. And so I started talking to a lot of different advisors, a lot of different hoteliers, suppliers, um, and different agencies all over the world, not just in domestically, but internationally. I think it was like my 30th call, like informational meeting. And I was like, all right, this is it. I got it. And so I found an amazing company in DC, and it just all really worked out well.
That's amazing. So, what would you say for somebody that is maybe looking to get into this career? Because I mean, it sounds amazing, and but every career has a downside. It's
Yeah.
not for everybody, just like
Yeah.
anything else. So, if somebody is thinking, I love to travel, like this is the job for me. What kind of skills do you think that they should develop, or what type of person is maybe somebody that what's the downside? Is there
Yeah.
some type of person that maybe this isn't the right path for?
Yeah, and I think, my first advice would be do what I did, is speak to other advisors and get their take on it. And speak to advisors that have been in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, because you can see that growth of, like, what is that first year like versus what is, year 15. It's definitely different experiences, but the tenure and those that have been in the industry for so long is beneficial, because then you can see, what does my life look like in 5 to 10 years. When I talk about travel, everyone's like, it sounds perfect. This is amazing. It's a tough industry. And the reason why I say I don't say there's a downside, but I think people need to recognize you're not just traveling the world and everything's amazing. You still are working with clients. You are with them on these trips, even if you're not physically there, because so many things in the travel industry. And like I said, post COVID, a lot has changed. Everyone has seen those flight prices have increased in transportation. People are on strikes or they're doing call outs and flights canceled. So, you're dealing with all of that with your client. So you're going with, those emotions with them, and putting it together, making sure you're planning the perfect trip. So it's a lot of work. I mean, it is day and night. So you have to be committed to that and being comfortable. And then also keeping up with the knowledge, because, like I mentioned, with the travel trends, they're changing hourly, daily, weekly, monthly. So making sure that you are well versed in every single place. So it's hard because everyone's like, do you have a specialty? For me, it's the globe. And so that's really hard to be like, do you know about Vietnam? Do you know about Japan? What about Argentina? What about so the questions you're fielding? So you lean a lot on the destination managers, but you are trying to manage clients' expectations, walk them through them. Um, so I think that's one of the hardest things, but it is a job that you have to love. You have to love, live, and breathe travel because you're having those conversations with the clients, with the hotels, with your managers, your destination managers, and so it is nonstop. And I say one of the hardest things is when your family and friends come to you like, "Oh, you can plan my trip for free. Let's do this." And you're like, "Wait a minute." So, I think that's the funniest part is everyone thinks they're going to get, this Lux free vacation. I'm like, well, it's not free. So those are my funny like calls and texts that I get. But I will say, speaking to advisors is crucial. One of the things that everyone gave me feedback, and I know what that's like, is the first year is the hardest. You're building your book of business. You are getting
Mhm.
clients, and you want them to trust you. Everything will work out if it all goes well and the referrals will spread and you will self-market yourself and, promote everything you've done. But that first year is really hard. First year is where you're trying to say, please trust me. I want to plan this for you. And so the clients have to, trust you. So you do start with your friends and family, but you notice that your book of business expands and it changes. And so you start working with the clients you love. You start maybe having a specialty field in, a specific continent, maybe a country destination. So you're kind of growing the first year. And that's the hardest year because you're trying to identify what do you love, what you want to work with, but also that book of business. I think that's the hardest part. People think, "Oh, it's amazing. Everyone will call you." But I'm like, it's really difficult to make sure that you find the right client for you. For me, I was, this is my third career. So every career that I chose, I always say I did this because I love it. I want the clients that I work really well, that we have this amazing rapport. It's comfortable. I want to be able to know that I want to speak to you and text you every single day, and then vice versa. I want them to be like, "Oh, I love talking to you. You make it so easy. It's comforting. I trust you." I think it's the trust, but it goes both ways. I want to trust my client, and I want my client to trust me as well. So it's one of those situations where you are spending a lot of time building a relationship and a trust with the client. So patience is crucial during this, process, but I think, after the first couple of years, you get in a really great, system. You know what you like, what you appreciate, and you find what that niche is for you. But I will say the first year is definitely the hardest. Not everyone survives the first year. I've talked to some advisors that I did it for 6 months. I'm not making any money. This is really hard. I think I need to look at something else, which means it's just not the right fit. So you kind of have to power through that first year. And like I said, love, live, and breathe travel and, work really well with your clients and just be open-minded and having that patience.
Amazing. So you've talked about COVID a couple of times. I just want to touch on one more thing about that. So how has COVID, I know that COVID has changed kind of everything in our lives, but I think it really could have gone either way where people could have been like, oh, this, COVID happened, like I'm afraid to travel, or other people have had the like realizations like, oh, I want to get out there and see the world now because
Yeah.
I've been, stuck in my house for this long,
Right.
or it kind of opened something in my head in my brain to be like, there's other things that I want to do in this world, in
Yeah.
this life. So, how do you think, and what's the change that you think that travel has taken since COVID?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's a really great question because, I get asked that a lot of like, how, what are you seeing this year? And I think if you like, I keep talking about travel trends, but if you just look at what are things pricing and when they're higher, that means everyone's traveling. The flights are more expensive, the hotels are more expensive. I mean, with Italy, you see the price points in Lake Como and Amalfi Coast, and you're like, wait, what just happened? That wasn't
Right.
there pre-COVID. So the conversations are different. And I think we all have to be really flexible. The demand is there. And this year probably set so many new records. I mean, you look at all the articles, all the travel magazines, people, even the different destination managers I'm talking to in all the countries across the board are like, wow, this was a big year for us. And it's a good and bad thing. So it has the pros and cons, I say. Pros are amazing. They suffered 2 years and maybe not having businesses or borders closed or visa restrictions, COVID vaccines, whatever was needed. So they had a lot of restrictions and they weren't able to welcome tourists in. But I think the other thing that was really hard for them is they're trying to bounce back from it. So if they lost staff, that's something that's tough during the COVID. They're trying to make up for it now. So a lot of conversations, I was actually in the Amalfi Coast and I was talking to just the bartenders, the wait staff, and the drivers. And they're like, COVID was so hard for us. And we are so thankful for this travel. 2022 and 2023, so last year and this year, I think it just skyrocketed. So they were really thankful for it, but they said it's very overwhelming because the staff that we had pre-COVID, we
Mm.
lost during that break. And I never
Oh,
actually
wow.
thought about that. And they went to do other jobs. Maybe they moved, they left the area. And so they kind of had to start over and rehire, retrain, which takes time. And you know how that is when you're jumping into an industry. You want to feel comfortable. It takes 6 months, a year, and get used to it. So a lot of these other countries didn't have that time to do it. And for us in the West, we were like so excited to just get out the door, jump on that flight, get in that car because we are all homebound. So definitely the travel industry has changed its intense demand. Do I see it changing? No, I already have bookings for 2024 and people are already calling me for 2025, which I think that already shows that people are trying to get ahead of it. I think they saw what happened and 2022 was they were navigating through it. I think this year people saw like, oh, that's sold out. Oh, that's double the price. Oh, there's not many flight options. And so when they look at that, they're like, I'm a little concerned. Should I jump ahead and now plan for 2024 or the year after? I was like, yes, absolutely. At least engage with having those conversations. So ideas and dates and putting that on paper, I think that's crucial. So I have a lot of times people reach out to me like, is it too early to plan? I'm like, it's never too early to plan because what you want to do is get those conversations started because it's really nice to know where do you want to go for how long, who's coming with you. Those are conversations that can be had before you even book your flight or reserve that hotel. And it's really great, especially if you're working with an advisor, so that they can get that on paper and be like, you know what, let me give you some advice if you're trying to do Paris, Italy, and Greece, let me tell you something. The three most popular places in Europe, let's jump on this at least a year in advance. Let's get those conversations going. And it definitely helps with the clients so they know what's my timeline here. So, I see the clients who call me, hey, I want to leave in 2 months to Italy in July. I'm like, they're sold out, there's not much left. Or,
Yeah.
you're paying double the price for a smaller accommodation or one that's further away. It's the inventory that's scarce. So it's definitely changed. I think post, the pandemic, we saw a huge, change with the demand and people were ready to leave. I mean, they were excited to explore. And I think a lot of people, not just being homebound, but I think they were like, wow, this pandemic affected me in the sense where like, we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, when we were having initial conversations with COVID, I don't know about you, but I had clients when I owned my business who, talked to me about thinking that this would only last 2 months. And so it was a conversation like, oh, it'll be fine. It's only, it'll be gone in 2 months. We'll be fine for the summer. Right. And then, lo and behold, 2 years later, we're having the same conversations.
Yeah.
So I think where people are like, well, I'm not sure tomorrow, what's going to happen tomorrow. Why don't I enjoy today? And so I think the conversations have changed, which is really great. Some people saw and it impacted everyone differently. But the clients who are calling me about travel, they're like, let's do this. It was a tough 2 years and I'm ready just to go out and live and explore.
I love that, and I love that people are having that attitude and
Yeah.
going out and seeing the world because like we said, it definitely does
Yeah,
changes
for
your
sure.
perspective on life and everything. So I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to go back to kind of the beginning. You
Okay.
started your career in event production, as did
Mhm.
I, which is how we met.
Yes, love it.
So you and I worked for the same company. You were based in the New York office, and I was based in the Chicago office. But we worked on a couple of large scale events. In our time together. And I remember you're a lot younger than me. And I remember you were the event coordinator on a couple of pretty large productions. And you were young, but you like so had your act together and were like the most organized person, like literally that I've ever seen.
Oh my god,
Um,
that's so nice because it didn't feel that way, so someone telling me, like, I had something together in my 20s, I'll take it.
Oh my gosh, you so for somebody in their 20s, I mean, not even for somebody in their 20s, for somebody any age, you kept everybody kind of on track. You knew everything about I mean, I'm thinking in particular the event that we did in Grand Cayman or in the Cayman
Mhm.
Islands,
Yeah, mhm,
which
yeah.
was so large, such a large production, and you just kept everybody in line and knew everything about everything. And I don't think you ever said, I don't know to anybody. Like you knew everything about everything. So, um, I know that you went on and continued in that industry after you and I didn't work for the same company, but tell me a little bit about how you got into events and, how your career kind of advanced in that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I will tell you like a quick funny story because you and I worked on it was the Ritz-Carlton Hotel actually in Grand Cayman. We were
Yes.
doing the opening for it. Big headliners with Sheryl
Yep.
Crow and, Tony Bennett. That event sits with me forever. But you know what's kind of crazy? A couple weeks ago, I was in Vegas for this big travel conference, and I'm sitting next to the director of sales from the Ritz-Carlton at Grand Cayman. I was
No.
like she's like, "So nice to meet you." And I saw her briefly at another event in DC and we, talked a little bit, but it was a cocktail hour, so it was really hard to, connect. But sitting at a dinner, I was like, "I'm gonna tell you a little bit about your hotel that you might not know about and this event that I did there." And she and her and I just hit it off. It was so much fun. And she's like, "Wow, that is crazy." I'm like, "It's many moons ago."
That is
And she wasn't
amazing.
there at the time, but I don't know, I guess it was meant to be for her to sit next to me. So I will say, talk about full circles in life, right?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I would have loved to have been part of that conversation
Yeah.
because that event will stay with me forever
Yeah.
and ever. I think
Yes. I aged
grew and
fast.
aged and yes, I mean, I grew in so
But
many
yeah,
ways and I
yeah, yeah.
aged in so many ways. But
The
yeah,
gray hair was real in the 20s, let me tell you. I had like one strand. I'm like, "What is that?" "Oh, yeah, I know that was that
that's from the
event."
Ritz. That's from the Ritz for sure. What a
No.
great experience though.
Yeah,
It was, the fact that it
crazy.
will stay with both of us forever, I think
Yeah,
was that could be a whole
yeah.
other podcast. I think we
I
could just talk about that event.
Oh my god, we should just talk about the event world. That's a life itself. And then someone would be like, "Write a book." I know. God, those chapters would not end, and no one would believe half these stories.
Absolutely. And maybe we should continue to we're gonna talk about maybe
Yeah.
those
Let's
stories,
offline that. Yeah,
on, yeah,
this is good.
for
Definitely for
sure.
sure. Yeah. But I had to share that because I knew you and I obviously shared that experience. Definitely a bonding moment. Anyone out there in the event world that is listening to today's podcast, they
Yes.
can relate. There are events, even if you're no longer in the world, there are some events that will just sit with you, good and bad, forever. And I think it's one of those things that I love and I will always cherish. And no matter what, even the ones that were the most difficult, the ones I struggled with so much, they made me who I am today. And I'm so thankful for it. And I will never, say anything negative in the sense that that was so difficult. And those trials and tribulations, those flows, those emotions you get as an event producer are so difficult, but in the long run, they helped me build my second career, which was, building my business and my brand. Those situations are helping me now with my clients working, in the hotel industry, working with hospitality. I'm using career one now with career three. So it's something I'm always thankful about. And, just kind of
That's so well put, and I have to say, there were definitely times when I was like, "What am I doing? Why am I torturing
right,
myself?"
why?
Right, but I do feel that when I was on an event, regardless of the size, that moment that event kind of comes to life
Yeah,
is probably
the
the
best
most
feeling.
creative I have ever
Yes.
felt. It's
Yeah,
just it's
it
such a good
is.
feeling, and it's such a good feeling of
Yeah.
accomplishment.
Yeah.
that you kind of like forget about the pain that it took to kind of get
Yes.
to that
Oh my God.
moment.
100%. It's a
So
proud moment. It's like your
it
baby.
is.
I felt like I had, a son or daughter at 20 because I'm just looking at this project. I'm looking at the eyes of my clients who are just glowing and smiling. And that's the best feeling. And I think about that. And then I also think about when everyone's like, what's the hardest part about it? And, there's so many easy answers. Oh, it's staying up till midnight, not eating, for days, just whatever's on your desk, you're praying someone leaves food somewhere in the kitchen, your just office hours are nuts, the meetings, you invest your life 6 months, 3 months, a year into a project. And so you don't get a break. It is day, night, it's weekends. But the one thing I always say, because that's the easy answer, I'm like, you know what the hardest part about all of it is you could spend 6 months on a project, day and night. You're working with an amazing team and let's say you throw this huge party and then it just let's say midnight 1 a.m. it's done. It's the breakdown that really like hurt me. Everything is ripped off the walls and taken down and thrown away and the flowers are given out and I'm like that just seeing like all your blood sweat and tears and it unfolds and it's this beautiful event and then like boop, clock hits midnight. Everyone's rushing in and ripping it down. I'm like, this is a little traumatizing.
That is hilarious. I've never thought about it that
Yeah,
way.
it
I've
really
never
like
thought about it
scarred
that
me.
way.
It did.
That's
I was like,
so
don't touch
funny.
that. Wait, one more picture. I'm like, hold on, can I stand in front of this? I'm like, do you know that specific red coloring? It took me 14 meetings with my client so that they were comfortable to make sure it was the correct red. And then you're just ripping it off a wall. Yeah. So I actually that's the answer when people are like, "What's the hardest part?" I'm like, seeing your love, your tears, your joy, all those emotions you felt planning it, just get tossed away.
That is so funny. I've never thought about it that way, but you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
That is a sad time. That is a sad
Yeah.
time at the
Yeah.
event.
That's the hardest part. But just kind of answering your question about how I got into it. So I came from loving the production world in college and, working a little bit dabbling in the events as much as you can in college.
Mhm.
And so I was really curious of you know, what that looked like for me. And when I graduated, I went to Australia for 4 months in the summer. Everyone was rushing to get a job, and I was like, "No, I'm gonna take 4 months off. I'm gonna travel, of course, and see, what it's like out there." And so I went to the furthest place ever. I knew nothing about Australia. I had no friends or family there. I said, "Let's do this." Got an apartment in Sydney and then traveled the whole East Coast. I saw a couple of events there in Australia. There's this one in Manly. They do this big wine. It's kind of like the wine and food festival in South Beach. It's the same thing that they do there. The production of it was just inspiring. I loved it. Everyone running around with microphones, trying to put, tents up, set up the bar, get catering set. Seeing that through those couple, months I spent, I love that. And I got back to, the stateside and I was like, what is this event world? It was so crazy. And you would laugh at this and anyone who's in the event world, but you're sitting there Googling the event world, event
Mhm.
production, just seeing what's out there. And Biz Bash showed up. And I'm like, what's Biz Bash? This is interesting. Wow. This is a website, everything and anything to do with the event world. And so I dove very deep into it. And that was it. I pretty much printed, and yes, I said printed, all my resumes. That's how old I am. And put them in an envelope, had my mom help me stamp them, and sent them out to everyone and did a cold call. And I said, hi, I'd love an information meeting. I'd love an information meeting. And everyone hung up. No one picked up. No one called back. I did that for a month. And actually, the company you and I worked for, one of the ladies that we know, she picked up and I could tell she was busy and like, why are you calling? Who are you?" And it was a smaller office at the time in New York. And I lied. I said, "Hey, I'm going to be in New York next week. I just want to know if you have 10 minutes. I want to get into the event world. I love the production side of it. I was thinking about being a producer, but start off as a PA. Do you have 10, minutes just to kind of walk me through that process? I'm not sure if you guys are hiring." And I think I just caught her off guard and she just felt bad. So she's like, oh, sure, you can pop in, Tuesday at this time. And that was it. I went in there and her and I connected really well. We all had actually a mutual friend because I did an internship with Viacom at MTV. I'm from New York, so I'm a New Yorker at heart. we had that bond, and I think that was it. And so, I tell everyone, whatever it is that you want to do, if it's the event world or something else, put yourself out there, keep trying. You're going to hear 9 no's, but there's going to be one yes. And that was that one yes with this company. And so I think seeing it from the outside world, I was like, I want to experience this. What is it like to be an event producer? And so being able to work for a company, a smaller one, so I was able to see everything from A to Z. I think that opportunity was I wasn't at a large production company and just a number. I was able to work side by side. I mean, it was myself and 2 other people in the office. There was 3 of us.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was just us when we first started. I was like their new quote unquote hire. I freelanced at first and then they brought me on 3 months later. And so I was able to see everything and get really involved with the production side of it and, working with the designers and the production team and the operations team. And so for me, that unfolded something that I was like, I love this. I need to keep doing it and further exploring it. But I think it's what you see in the outside world that you're like, I like that. That's amazing. And so it's the same conversation I had with that luxury travel advisor. I was like, this sounds amazing. Tell me everything about it. I need to know more. And you'll know that feeling. I always say it's like when your head, your heart, and your gut, they connect. That's when you know that's the right decision. And you're like, I need to do
Absolutely.
this. And that's kind of what
Absolutely.
happened in the event world, before I jumped into the other careers.
Yeah, the event world is I feel like that's one of those careers that people who don't work in it are like, "Oh my god, it's like so glamorous and so,
Yes.
amazing and just
Yeah.
go to like parties all the time." And it's just such a funny perspective
Yes.
because the real life of that is just so not that. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, there are these glamorous
Yes.
parties and yeah, you might be working with celebrities or
Yeah.
entertainers, but the back end of that is just
Yeah.
such a different story.
Oh
It's
my
like,
god,
well,
such
by
a
the time
different
the event
story.
starts, I've already
Yeah.
been on my feet for like 18 hours and
Oh my god.
haven't
Yeah.
eaten and just
Yes.
changed
Yeah.
in the bathroom
Oh
and
god, the
just
bathroom
like all of
changes.
this.
Oh, I don't miss those. My walkie cord getting stuck in my hair and attempting to put mascara on so I don't scare people while you've been sweating all day. Yeah. I
And
don't
just
miss
being like
those.
so gross and having to put something nice on after you've
Yes.
been, running
Ugh.
around for
Yeah.
18
Right.
hours.
And smiling after. I know. I will say this, the positive is I can get ready in under 5 minutes because you're forced to. And if I have to run and use the restroom, give me 2 minutes.
That's a skill that you come by honestly, for
It's
sure.
phenomenal. Like, so my boyfriend's like, "Oh, that was quick." I'm like, "Oh, I've got a system." Like, you do the event world in New York City, let me tell you, you don't have time. You can eat the fastest protein bar anyone's ever seen. Yeah,
That's so funny. It
it's
it
true.
definitely is crazy. It's a crazy world and it's very fulfilling. But I want to I want to go back to what you were saying about, just the way that you would cold call and just kind of,
Yeah,
that you put yourself out there because you really wanted to do it and you were interested in, what it was all about. And
yeah,
I had a similar I mean, like I said, I'm a lot older than you and I remember being in college and it was like a career day and this woman was speaking about her company in Chicago who, and she produced events. And I, at that time, didn't even realize that that was like a thing. Like,
yeah.
that's a job. Like, somebody has that job. So I remember, like, I was listening to this woman and I was like, that's it. Like, I was
Yeah,
in school I thought I was going to go into advertising. And so I was a marketing communications manager. And I mean, student. And I remember from that day on, I was like, this, when she was speaking, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like,
yeah.
this is exactly what I want to do. And I literally chased her down Michigan Avenue after she left the career. I walked out
I
and
love
chased
that.
her down Michigan Avenue and like begged her for a
Yeah.
job. And she
Wow.
was like, obviously you're still in school. I'm like, call me when you're done. And, and so I kind of
Yeah,
stalked her every semester after that and was like, "Give me an internship, give me an intern," and she
yeah,
didn't. And then when I graduated, which was, a year and a half later, maybe even 2 years later,
yeah.
um, she gave me an internship,
Wow.
an
Yeah,
unpaid
unpaid, yes.
internship,
Everyone make note, unpaid.
unpaid internship
Unpaid, yeah. Everyone is
after I
shocked.
graduated. After I had graduated and got my
Yeah,
degree, that is what she offered me. And that is what I took,
Yeah.
and I remember my parents being like, "What? Like,
Yeah.
what? You're
Right.
you're finished with school, like,
Right.
why are you working for free?" And I, at the time was just like, "This is I have to,
Yeah.
this is what I have to do
Absolutely.
because I have to do
Yeah.
this job." So, anyway, and then
Yeah.
after that, I think every job that I applied for, nothing was ever easy. It was
Yeah.
really all about,
Yeah.
like, kind of proving yourself, and I think that's with any industry, but
Absolutely. No, and I think you touched, something that's really important that I have preached so many times, is that you have to keep trying. You're gonna hear so many no's. And, for me, I take everything so personal. So you have to separate that when it's your career. And that's the hardest thing. And you can give advice on it, but to each their own on how they do that. And I still struggle till this day of how do I separate those, no's and not take it personal and say, oh, I heard a no, I'm gonna give up. If I did that, I would never have that New York City producing job. If I did that, I wouldn't have started a company. If I did that, I wouldn't be, as a luxury travel advisor. And so it's a reminder out there, like you said, chase that person down that street, go print out those resumes. Not that anyone's printing out resumes anymore, but shoot, send those envelopes out. But the no's are really the hardest part. But I kind of always remind everyone it's that yes that's going to change your life. Just
yes.
have to be patient with it no matter what career you do, no matter what and I can prove it because I'm on my 3rd career and every single one of those last, my 1st and 2nd career, the no's and the failures. Oh my God, starting a company, that alone is so difficult, but all of that is what you have to go through so that you can appreciate everything at the end. And if you don't go through that, you're not going to get that experience or that result that you want at the end. And so I always tell everyone patience with it. As much as I struggle with it, that's the key point is keep trying, keep doing it. And if it was easy, everyone would do it.
That's such great advice and so, so, so true. So, let's talk about your business. Tell me the story. I know a little bit about it, but let's kind of start. You kind of realized that you were done with the event industry at some point when you were still in New
Yes.
York.
Yeah, I
And
wanted more time to get ready. Hair and makeup, I wanted at least an hour. No, I think, New York was phenomenal. Like I said, I'm a New Yorker at heart. And I think spending that first 10 years in your 20s, it was the dream job. It was so amazing. It taught me things that I can never experience. And I think not only just the industry and how hard event production was during that time, but also in New York City. So I
Mhm.
always say every 1 year in New York that you live there is 7 years. You just age quickly, you learn faster. You're really it's that sink or swim, and it truly is. So I think after doing it for so many years, it was, I felt like I was plateauing. I already done this. What's next? And so I wanted to challenge myself. And I thought it was time to leave the city. I thought it was time to completely switch industries. I wanted to know what was out there. I didn't want to wake up and be like, is the event world for me for 30 years? It didn't feel there was a disconnect for me personally. I wanted to accomplish something a little bit more. And, knowing that my parents have, entrepreneurial skills, it's a conversation I had with many others who, were entrepreneurs and giving me such great advice. It was something that was always on the back of my mind, but I never in a thousand years thought that I was actually going to start a company. It happened where I left New York City and I went to visit my parents in Florida at the time. And so what was supposed to be a weekend on my way to Hawaii, because and everyone's like, "Why Hawaii?" I was like, "I don't tropical, there's trees and beaches, and they're like, "What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "I don't know." I was kind of trying to relive that 4 months of in Australia, and so I was like, "I'll just go to Hawaii." And you have to unwind before you wind back up again. And with New
So this
York
was
as
in
a producer,
between, after
yeah,
you had left the event industry and wanted to
yep,
kind of just
yeah,
unwind and figure out your
yeah.
next step.
Yeah, and
basically.
I think what's hard is people are like, "Well, how do you get out of a career that you've been doing 10 years, 15 years, 20? What if that's all you know?" I wanna touch on that quickly because that was my scary part. I'm like, "Well, I've been doing this 10 years." Everyone's like, "You live in Soho, you have a glamorous life, you're producing events, you're traveling the world. Like, why would you give this up? You have six-figure salary," So my family's thinking, "Oh, she's going through a crisis. Like,
Mhm.
should we call someone?" And I was like, "I'm not fulfilled. I'm missing something, and I think there's something more. I don't know what it is, but there's something more." Walking away from New York City in my career was the hardest thing I had to do. And everyone was like, "What was it like? You quit and you walk." I'm like, "Yeah, you make that jump. You make that leap." And then
That
you
is no
cry a lot.
easy no,
No,
that is
no,
not an easy thing to do, and like you
no.
said, I think it's so important
Yeah.
to check in with yourself every once
Yes.
in a while
Yeah.
because like you
Right.
said, I think that there are people who go and stay in one career their whole
Yes.
lives. And for some people, that's great
Right.
and it's
And
wonderful.
it
And
works.
for
Yeah.
others,
Yeah.
after 20 years, they're looking and saying, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. And I think
Right.
I
Yeah.
and they probably say, I didn't want to do this for a long time. And I'm not,
Right.
and I just
Yeah.
didn't check in with myself.
Right.
So I don't
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you did that because you
Yeah.
had these other, fulfilling experiences and these other fulfilling careers.
Yeah.
So, it's no easy feat is what I'm
No, it's
saying to do
not.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to my comment where I always say, if it was easy, everyone would do it. I
Yes,
think we in society, comfort is so important to us. And some people are so scared to get out of their comfort zone, but they realize that they're not happy. Um, but they won't do anything about it. And that's the part that breaks my heart. And I'm always like, if you're not happy, whatever it may be, not just jobs, relationships, friendship, whatever it is that doesn't make you happy, it's not fulfilling, find something else, get out of
100%.
that because I think life is too short. I always think, those who went through the pandemic and experienced that or illness or, deaths in your family, whatever it may be, I hope that's that trigger that's like, tomorrow's not guaranteed. What do I want to do to make myself happy today? Or where do I see my life in 5 years? I think we don't ask ourselves those questions enough. So when I was kind of at that, oh, and I will say it's a breaking point, in New York, where I was like crying. I was like, I'm so unhappy. And on paper,
Mhm.
it's amazing. Everyone's like I said, they were like, glamorous life. You're living
Yep,
in Soho, six figure. Why would you give that up? So on
right.
paper, this is the perfect world. In reality, no one understood. Like I was just so sad. I didn't even want to go in the office. I didn't want to, work on the projects. I didn't want to get on that client call. It was really difficult.
Mhm.
So walking away was probably the hardest thing. And everyone will, ask me, how was it? I am not going to lie. I remember going straight to my bar, my local bar, and just sitting on the counter and like crying. And the poor bartender's like, well, it's like noon on a Tuesday. Are you okay?
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
He's thinking, Is this a bad breakup?" I'm like,
Oh
"It
my
is a
god.
breakup. I just broke up with New York City and I'm
Uh,
devastated."
oh my
Um,
god, how
so
devastating.
I tell people like, "It's not easy." And then they're like, "What happened then?" I'm like, "And then I cried again. And then I sat on my couch and then I ate ice cream and then I cried to all my friends and I just kept crying." And they were like, "Yeah." I'm like, "So it's hard. It's not easy. I'm
Yeah,
not going to be like, you have this powerful moment or you have an epiphany. Teach your own. I hope you do." But for me, it wasn't like that. And then after a couple days, I'm like, "No, this is the right decision. You have to remember why you're here, why you put yourself here. Forget the in
yes,
between.
right.
It's what was it that led you to make this decision and stick by it? And it's not going to be easy. And you felt like you hit rock bottom, but there's something more out there." And so, it took me a minute to get there. But once I did, I was like, wow, I actually feel lighter, a big weight off my shoulder. And it felt comfortable. Actually, that felt more comfortable than me staying in a job with comfort. And I know that's hard to explain until you experience it. But
Yeah,
I'm sitting here being like, I am unemployed in New York City right now, and I felt happier and more comfortable than I did at that job.
wow.
Um, and I think that's something that's powerful and let yourself feel that. Let yourself go through all those emotions. It's crucial. It's part of the process. I wish someone told me that, but now I realize that's part of the process. Okay, I got it. So once I did that, I went to visit my family that summer. What was supposed to be just a quick weekend and a pit stop almost on my way to this dreamland in Hawaii that I, pretended in my head that I was like, I'll work at a surf shop and, eat amazing seafood and, poke bowls and live life. Everyone's like, okay, good luck. I think That weekend was really interesting. I had a friend who was like, "Oh, we have a house here in South Tampa that we're moving out of. So if you're looking for a place," and I was like, "I'm not moving to Florida. No, thank you. I have my dreams on Hawaii. I'm set. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do." And then, that couple days that I was there, all my friends were working. I was the only one. I called it a sabbatical. Everyone said it's unemployment. So I was like, I'm on an amazing sabbatical. I'm trying to find myself, and everyone's so worried. She's having a crisis. This is a breakdown. That's what my family's probably saying behind my back.
Yep.
They're all concerned. And, the funny story is, everyone was walking, everyone had pets at the time, and so I happened to go if whoever's listening from South Tampa, it's called Hyde Park Village, and it's basically shops and restaurants all outdoors, and it's beautiful. I walked around there, and I was helping my friends walk their pets while they were at work. So they're like, "Do you mind running to my house, picking up my dog and, walking them?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure, but you're interrupting my tanning time. I'm supposed to be at the pool all day. I'm on vacation." And, they're like, "You're
On
unemployed." I'm like,
sabbatical.
I'm on vacation, so I ended up helping walk their pets during lunch while they're at work, and I remember 3 people nonstop coming up to me, "Are you a dog walker?" I was like, What? What's a dog? What do you mean a dog?" "No, I'm not a dog walker." I was like, "I'm These are my friend's dogs. That's my dog. I'm just helping out." And they're like, "Oh, okay, sorry. We're looking for someone to take care of our animal." I was like, "Oh, okay, no worries. Have a great day." Moved on. Literally another block later, "Oh, excuse me, do you have a card?" I'm like, "A card? No, I don't. I'm not. I'm. These are my friend's dog. That's my dog." So I said the same thing, and it just happened back to back to back. And I'm like, "This is so crazy." And so I went back home. I started Googling, pet care companies, in the area, and I'm like, there's a lot of entrepreneurs here, people who know South Tampa blew up. There's a lot of investment people from Boston, investing in Tampa. There's a lot of money in South Tampa that people don't know. It was this little hidden gem that unless you visited or knew someone, you didn't really know much about South Tampa. So when I Googled it, I'm like, how do they not have a pet company here to help? So I looked, the websites were tragic, dated, old, lengthy. I was like, "Oh my God." And I had thought about my dog walker in New York City, who I loved, and her name was Yvonne. And I remember she would walk around with like 10, 12 dogs. And I was like, "Hi, could you help with my dog?" She's like, "Nope, sorry, I'm not taking on new clients." And she was tough. I was like, but I knew she was the best. Everyone in Soho talked about Yvonne. And so I followed her every single day. Talk about you chasing that woman. Well,
Yeah.
I chased the dog walker, Vaughn, and every day I was like, "Oh, are you taking new clients?" "Nope, not nope, I'm not." I'm like, "Oh my God, what has to happen?" And so I did that for about like 2, 3 weeks. I even bought her truffles. I know, I bribed her. I
You
admit it, it's
bribed her.
here, but I basically bribed her. I remember buying her chocolates. She's like, "Great, thanks. Who are you?" And stop following me. Like, I think she was gonna call the cops. But it was like week 3 or 4, and she's like, "Hi again." I was like, "Hi, remember Riley? This is my dog. Will you help?" And she finally goes, "I have an opening." And I was like, "Oh my, are you serious? You have an opening?" And I just remember like crying. This is what moms feel like maybe when you find like that babysitter, right? That nanny. Well, that's how I felt. I was like, "Oh my God, thank you."
Hilarious.
Because you're working 80-hour weeks. I'm traveling the world. I could bring her to some things, but not everything. And you know how the production life is. You're up
Yeah.
hours and upon hours. And so I
And it's
wanted
your
someone.
baby, like,
Yes.
you
Oh
want the
my
best for
god.
your
And
baby.
I didn't have kids, so she was my child.
Yeah.
I put more money in her than anything. She probably got the best Christmas gifts. Sorry, parents, but that's true. So, I found her, and that changed my life. She saved my life. I was able to travel and not worry. She took care of her when she was sick. She came over. They did sleepovers. I mean, it was amazing. And I was just like, wow, what if I didn't have that? And so I'm like, is this missing here in South Tampa? Is there a gap where people don't have that trust that you need as a pet, someone as a pet, giver who's going to watch after your animals when you're
Yeah.
traveling. Maybe you're at work, maybe, they're senior animals and they need help every 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever that situation is in your household. So after Googling, researching all the companies, I was like, wow, there's a miss. There's something not, there's the disconnection between the amount of animals, which Forbes announced that Tampa was the number 2 pet friendly city in the US, which
Really?
was crazy. Yeah. And so I was like,
That's
but they don't
strange.
have that many, pet care, people here, dog walkers, And so that just got me spinning. I was like, God, I love animals. And I thought about all the shelters I worked with in New York City on the weekends to volunteer. And that was my saving grace as a producer, was shutting off and helping these animals, taking care of them, petting them, walking them, just it brought me into a place where I wanna shut off here. I can put my phone away and just spend time with the animals, and I remember that joy. And so I said, "Well, wait, what if I work with animals? It's gotta bring me that joy. I remember those weekends, so there's gotta be something here that maybe I can, turn into a business." And that's literally how the company unfolded. It was those people asking me for a business card for a company I didn't even think about, for me doing some researching, realizing there's a miss with the marketing and there is a demand, and also being a client. I was a client to Yvonne and I know what I needed. I know what was important. That trust, that bond, like I mentioned in the travel industry, it's the same thing with whoever you're letting into your home, who's taking care of your pets, your children. It's something that it's a trust that you have to have a strong bond with that person because
Hmm.
you're letting them into your world and you're giving them possession of some of the things that are the most precious, most important things to you, like your children, like your pets. And so I wanted to create that environment from all my lessons I learned about, how that New York City dog walker helped me and kind of give that back. And that's how that company started. So when I'm supposed to leave on Sunday and go to this amazing, Hawaii retreat and be like this, cute surfer, even though I don't know how to surf,
You
I
became an accidental
I'm a
entrepreneur
yeah, an
instead.
accidental entrepreneur, and that was it, and that Monday, I signed a lease at my friend's place who happened to be moving out that weekend, and I said, "Let's do this, let me figure this out," and so started Googling, researching it, LLC, got a name, and, that was it, and the rest is kind of history. I mean, the story goes on, but it was accidental, but I knew there was something there, and I could have just walked away from it, and I decided, "Let me actually dive a little bit deeper." And that's,
So it was a big
you
leap
know,
of faith for you to do that and kind of
huge.
abandon your hopes and dreams of having a sabbatical in Hawaii is
Yes,
one,
yes, yeah.
but also you weren't planning on staying in Tampa. You were just it was kind of a pit
No,
stop for you.
no,
So you did you ever
yeah,
think like, yeah, I mean, you were not thinking like I'm gonna settle roots here and I'm gonna open a
no, not at
business.
all. No, and, I love my parents, and so the thought of being closer to them was a nice thought, but not something that I was planning on doing. So I think that
Right.
was the one part that was like, "Oh, this is so nice," and I have a couple friends in Florida because I went to college in Florida. So that thought was nice, but I had no interest of living in Florida. And for all the New Yorkers out there, like it's such a different world. And so, I thought I would take a break and then come back to city life. It was, Florida was never on the radar. It's a place that I personally did not want to live post college. I already did that. And so I don't it all would happen so fast that I just went with it. And I didn't doubt my decisions. I didn't question them too much, which it could be good and bad, but I think in these situations, don't overthink it. Because sometimes when you overthink it, you end up doing the thing you don't want to do. So it's when I mentioned that like head, heart, gut feeling that I talk about, that's crucial. Listen to that. And you don't get it all the time. It might say it once, it might pop
Mhm.
up twice, but it's not going to be a reminder every day. And so when that happened, I just said, all right, this is it. And I went with it. And I didn't think too much about it in the sense where, how do I convince myself not to do it? I said, let me convince myself that this might be it. If I choose a career that is working with animals, I create this pet concierge, this private, exclusive, company where I can assist and help other, families that like how I was assisted in New York, this is something that will fulfill me. I get to work with animals. And I get to form these really great connections, with my clients. And so it had everything that I was looking for, checking off the boxes, but wasn't even in my life plan. And I think maybe I enjoyed that a little bit too, where I was like, this is the unknown. I'm comfortable with change. Why don't I make this leap? So I have to tell people out there, it's not sometimes what you're gonna write in your diary. It's not like, oh, and I'm gonna do this. That doesn't life doesn't always hand you, those situations. Sometimes it's presented to you and you have to take it or not. But I always say, don't overthink it sometimes. Make that leap. The hardest part is that job. Like for me, leaving New York, leaving, the producing job, that's so hard. Starting this company, staying in Florida, everything that I was not planning for, I made that leap. And, I've never been happier and more fulfilled, in a career that I didn't plan. So I'm so fortunate to be able to have that opportunity. And, I think about it like what scares me sometimes is what if I didn't say yes? Like, what if I did go to Hawaii? Like, where would my life be now? You
Right.
know?
It's so crazy to think about that. And I think there's a lot of people out there. I actually believe, I don't know if everybody does, but I actually believe that there are opportunities all around us all the
Yes.
time.
Yes.
The universe is just giving us the
Yeah.
opportunities are there. And I think it takes something to really,
Yeah.
again, check in with yourself and say, wait,
Yeah.
maybe I should go down this road. And
Right.
it's usually not the easiest road. It's
Yeah.
usually the more difficult road. And I think, for you, probably the easier road would have been to
Yeah.
go and have a great, time in
Yeah.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
And this was definitely, you opened a business. I mean,
Yeah.
you started a company that you had
Yeah.
never, really prepared to do. So now you're in Tampa. You've started this
Yeah.
business.
Hmm.
You don't necessarily know anything about running a business, right? Because you've not done it
No.
before.
Correct. Yeah.
So you just figured it out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how did you make it through that?
More tears on the couch. So let's pop that into every career. A lot. And, draining of a 401k, which I don't recommend, but that's where it was. Because it's a financial commitment. It's
Yes.
not just emotional, it's financial. And that's all the careers. As you know, should I take that internship that's unpaid? Yes. Why? Because it'll open more doors. Same thing when I
Yeah.
interned at MTV. They're like, it's unpaid. I'm like, it's okay. Putting, Viacom on my resume will get me in. And it did. It got me into the first job with, the company you and I
Yeah.
worked for. So that's crucial. It's knowing that, all right, let's just do this. And so I think knowing it was a financial, emotional commitment, it actually makes you want to work harder. It
Because
is
you
your
have to.
brand.
You
I
have
have
to at
to.
that point,
Yeah. I'm
right?
like, I need to eat more than Cheerios.
Right,
At this
right.
point, you invested
You're committed.
everything.
You're
You're
committed.
committed. And I think being a business owner is so hard. And on people always ask me, should I do it? I can't answer that for you. But I'm going to tell you, it is harder than working your 9 to 5. It is
Yes.
harder because it is your investment. It is your pride and joy. And if you have that entrepreneur skill, everything you take personal, period, no matter what. And you're fighting, those conversations in your head of how do I not take this personal? It's your brand, it's your company, it's your staff you're with, it's your clients. There's so many moving pieces. So I think that's the hardest part. And it isn't for everyone, to be honest. And I tell people it is very, very hard. I think that's why, the percentage of doing that is scary, it's low, but that's because you have to be fully committed. So I asked some people ask me and I, ask them a couple of questions. They're like, well, no, no, I love to travel or I don't want to compromise that. Or no, my weekends are important. Or after 5, I'm a hard stop. I'm like, well, then you need to think about, is that the life for you? Because as an
Right.
entrepreneur, it is 24/7, especially if you want to be successful, if you want to grow, you can stay, you know, flat and, plateau and this is
Right.
it.
Right.
But then where do you go from there? And then you'll realize maybe, okay, I am only working X amount of hours, but I'm not fulfilled.
Mhm.
So those are the questions you ask yourself. But for me, it was going all in. It was, I was in survival mode. It felt like the first year in New York where I was like, I have to impress this company so that I can stay here and keep getting my promotions. With this company, it was like, I have to build this brand. I have to make it successful because this is my bread and butter. And I love it so much. So it's more than just a passion project because in reality, let's be honest, we all need to make money. You have to pay
Absolutely.
your bills. You have to put food on that table. And so, the fear's there. So you could take the fear and just fail, or you take that fear and light a fire under your ass. That's what I say.
Yeah.
And just, I'm going to go with this. And so for every no I heard, I said, it's okay. I remember the resume. So I would just tell myself those New York City stories. It's okay. It's okay. You're going to have tough clients. It's okay. That's not going to work out. You're going to hear no's. Keep going. There's going to be a yes. And I already experienced that with career one. So I grabbed hold of that thought and that feeling. And I said, I'm going to take this on the career too. And I need to keep reminding myself. So there was a lot of hard days, but I will say after, when the brand launched, I remember it was November of 2013. By January, the business, I mean, it went just skyrocketed
Wow.
90%. Boom. That was
Wow.
it. They love the business model, they love the website, they love the marketing plan. The people in Tampa knew there was a need for this. And I think what helped me was the fact that I came from a marketing background. People in the pet industry, especially those who have the companies, they're a little bit quieter, they're a little introverted, they just work with the animals. Well, for me,
Mhm.
I had to get
You
to the
had the other
animal, I
side of
needed
that.
to work
Yeah.
with the clients.
Yeah.
Look, if the dogs and cats, and all the hamsters, animals had credit cards and they could pay, perfect. I would
Right.
still be there. But at the end of the day, it's that human that's letting you into their home. It's
Yeah.
that human who's going to pay, that bill. And so I realized that the model wasn't working because people were trying to connect with the animals first. But I was like, you need to get in that door and earn the trust of the owner because that's the most important part. They have to allow you to come in, allow you to take care of their family. So for me, utilizing that kind of sales and marketing side of it and, being an extrovert, I was able to connect. And once that happened, then I was able to have the second part, which I loved, which was being, with all the pets out there. And I think what's important is, taking something that you love and turning it into a business was easy for me. I loved animals. So I already came back from a background of volunteering, having my own dog, working with them. So that was the starting point. So when people are like, how did you get into it? I'm like, what is it that you love? Like, what?
Mhm.
And everyone's like, "Yeah, well, I don't know. I love photography and I love cooking." I'm like, okay, so separate it now. Like, what's a hobby and what is something that you can live and breathe every day? I'm talking the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed, maybe even having some dreams about it. What
Right.
is that?
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "And that's how you know, is that what I love to do? And can I see myself doing it every day and talking about it?" And I did that with the event world because I knew I can live and breathe events. And with animals, I'm like, I love animals. I know that I can live and breathe animal. I can talk about them all day and play with them and connect with the clients and go to pet events. Like I know there's something here. So that was my answer for me. And then I knew that there was a demand. So from the business marketing standpoint, there was a need. And it was a need because the community came to me and told me. And
Yeah.
then when I saw what was out there, I was like, wow, they really do need something. There's a miss here. And so I got in it at the perfect time. It was phenomenal. I mean, I sold the company last year and it was with, 20 staff. We had three amazing managers and over 320 clients. And this is the crazy
Amazing.
part. It's in a 5-mile radius. And
Wow.
and the reason why we did that is because I'm a New Yorker and I don't like to drive. So moving to Florida, that was the hardest part. I'm like, cabs? Is there a cab, Uber, someone? And so I had to get a car. I didn't even have a car when I went to Florida. I was borrowing my parents' car. It was so sad. So I bought a car, drove, but I was like, I hate driving. So if I'm going to build a company where we have to drive, let's make it short distances. I
I
don't mind a
love
10-minute
that.
drive. So the
That's
company
so
was
smart.
why not? Right. So people loved working, with us because, we made it fun. I'm all about company culture. I took a lot of things I learned in New York. But I think the most important part was like they got paid to play with animals. They loved it. Vitamin D outside, great workout. And the distances were short. So they're just driving 10 minutes, hanging out with the dog
Right.
for 30 minutes, going to the neighbor's house again. And so, it started off with college students because they had the time, the flexibility. Everyone knows in college you need that extra side cash. I call that coffee cash. And so, it started there. But then when people heard about it, I started getting teachers because they were off for the summer, yoga instructors because, they
Wow.
love obviously being active, but they had the breaks. I mean, it just went. And then I had people who were 9 to 5 working corporate jobs and love animals and wanted just to spend more time, or they couldn't have a pet, or they just lost a pet and they weren't ready to get one. So then they would help with night and weekends. And so it just unfolded into a company that I just did not expect. If someone told me that first year that this is where it was going to go and you were going to sell a company, I probably would have laughed. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, because when I went into it, I'm not going to lie, I never thought that this was going to be a career. I honestly thought this was going to be my hobby for 3 to 6 months. And then I'm going to Hawaii. I'm like, well, this will be just a break. I'll do it for a year.
Like a
I'm
little
not going to,
side hustle and,
why not?
yeah,
I'll have
got
some
it.
cash coming in. I get to play with animals. I'm in Florida. It's the summertime. I can hang out by the beach and pool and, spend some time with my family. Lo and behold, that 3 months in, it exploded and that was it, and we just dove in. And the technology side of it, having an app and just everything. I just went all in.
I mean, that has to be so you had to learn a lot of those things. I mean, how do you know how to, develop an app? How do you know how to have employees and manage people?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that that was a lot, and that could again be a whole other podcast that we could talk
Yeah.
about in terms of how you got to that point.
Yeah.
But did you have advisors? Did you have people that you went to for advice? Like, how did
Yeah.
you kind of figure it all out?
I'm going to be honest, you roll the dice and you're going with your gut and you have to go with what you've learned. But at the end of the day, it's all a new learning curve. I made so many poor decisions and I made so many good decisions, but you have to be okay with it. And what I always say is when you're trying to navigate something that you is the unknown, that you have no idea how this is going to unfold, obviously, like I said, go with that gut, but you have to be comfortable knowing it might not be the right decision. And that's okay. Just don't do it again. That's the lesson learned there is fall once and get up, but don't
Don't
fall
do it
again
again.
on that same mistake. So, if I learned something from, whatever that might have been, I'm not repeating that again. I'm finding a solution and moving on. And that mistake won't happen again. And it didn't. And I think that's what you take from it. So, did I have the answers? No. Is there a handbook? Absolutely not. How do you say, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur? What's next? It's researching, it's connecting with people. I talk to a lot of people, people who owned companies, people who loved animals, people who are local, just the community. What are you looking for? What do you need? And so I think the outreach is the most important. It's really just connecting with the community, with the industry. I think what a lot of people, I always say I wanted community, not competition. And just think about it. I'm new on the block, and there are all these other companies who are 5 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
15 years. And it's a very small city. Everyone knows South Tampa is tiny. Like I said, I'm working with like 5 mile radius.
Yeah.
So, I'm the new person on the block trying to start this company, incorporating tech and everything and GPS tracking. And just, I want to take this to another level. And the other, dog walking companies, pet concierge are like, who are you? What are you doing? And so I know that was my heart. That was the tough one to get into. That one, the one I was scared because I also wanted to work together and there was enough animals, enough clients to go around.
Sure.
So my first thing was I reached out to all of them and said, love to set up a coffee chat. Do you mind? And not everyone said yes, but the 5 that did, I went, had coffee, I introduced myself. Hey, I want to do this. I'm so proud of you. I saw this, talked to them about, a couple of their accomplishments or awards or website stuff, anything. And we just hit it off. And what that led to was we formed a pet, community. And we would all text each other. We all got together. We did happy hours or coffees. We'd have those fun meetings. And instead of feeling like we're competitors, we were family. And
I am
that to
so
me is
amazed by
crucial.
that. That's so amazing. I love that story. I'm actually working on right now on an idea about competition, and I feel like
Yeah.
as a woman,
Yeah.
it's a female perspective to do that
Yeah.
because I don't
Yeah.
think that there are a lot of men
Right.
who are owning businesses who say I'm going to create uh community instead of competition, and I
Yeah.
and I love that you did
Yeah.
that, and I love when I see that because you're right,
Yeah.
there's enough work for
Yeah.
everybody, and
Right.
you can help each other by
Yeah.
creating a community,
100%.
and so that's
Yeah.
amazing. I really want to just say, like, that's such an amazing thing that you did in
No, thank
creating
you.
that.
And I think it's scary, but I was like, I'm stepping on what I felt like their territory, and so I understand if they're not all going to be welcoming. It's scary too. They're like, well, wait, what about our business? And, so it something was I know that it's that sense of unknown. Same thing for me. And so having that connection, having that coffee, was like, no, let's grow together. Let's help each other out. Let's give each other advice. Um, and I think that's really important. And as much as it sounds scary and you're like, well, we're all competitors and we're all competing for this. If you approach it differently, it really does open a door that you would never have thought, which is like I mentioned, the community aspect of it is kind of bringing everyone in that industry together. And I will say this, it's really funny. What turned into that ended up being something that reoccurred often. And then I was getting phone calls of, hey, I'm in this situation. What should I do? And we ended up being one of the largest dog walking pet sitting companies there. which
Wow.
is kind of crazy. And that was in less than 3 years. And so then I
Unbelievable.
have them calling, us and saying, "Hey, I had a quick question. Hey, do you mind helping? Do you have a contact for that? How do you do this? Oh, I have a situation with a client." I loved it. I was like, all right, let me tell So I shared as much as I could. And I loved helping them. But years later, I look at it, I'm like, wow, we formed something together. It was such a great bond. But, having them call me, knowing that they've been there longer, but me making those crazy leaps and expanding and exploring and trying so many different ideas, I think that was just telling that we were all going to help each other. That what started with that I'm so scared coffee chat and, talk to a stranger led into a community. And one of the ladies, I'll never forget this, we got together. She goes, "Do you know what I love about these?" And I was like, what, like the free coffee and us not working for this 1 hour, And she's like, "No, that I can vent and you can understand what I'm saying to you and you're not telling anyone and you can give me feedback and I can give you feedback, but we're able to share something that my partner doesn't get,
Right.
my employees don't understand, my family and friends don't have that language because they're not in this. And everyone keeps telling me, "Oh, look, you're playing with animals. How hard. Like, I have to work and get ready and wear a suit." And she's like, "It's August in Florida. I'm working 8 hours outdoors. I'm
Right.
driving house to house and dealing with, pets who are sick, or what about those who are, dying?" I mean, the things that we've seen, we're also going to people's homes. It's a
Right.
very personal environment. I mean, think about that. If I'm going into your home every day, things are happening. I mean, we went through weddings, breakup, divorces, baby showers. I mean, we're part of that family.
Yeah.
And so people didn't actually understand it. And so when she said that, she's like, "It's nice to have someone that understands and who can speak that language." And to me, that was the most powerful comment, because I'm like, "You're right. I'm sure my boyfriend doesn't want to hear about this dog anymore, or what do we do?" Or,
It's
I
so
think they're
powerful to
tired of
do
it.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
and to
is.
have and I think in any aspect of your life, if you have that community of people that understand and are going through the same thing that you are,
Yeah.
there's just because like you said, the other outside people, they don't understand. Even if
Don't
they have the
understand
best
it.
intention to try,
Yeah.
they really
Yeah.
there's a certain level that they can understand, and then beyond that, they really can't. So,
Yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
important to have that, have that
Yeah.
community.
And this goes across the board, not just career wise. This is for everything. If there's something you love to do, you love running, join a run club. If there's something, find that common bond with whoever that is, that group, that individual, book club, cooking class, because it opens the door. You have this one thing that you can relate to. "Oh, I love cooking. I love cooking too." And it just, you make friends, you form this community. I get, people have asked like, "Oh, you just packed your bags and went to DC. You know no one there. What do you do?" I'm like, once again, you just throw yourself in the mix." So, I'm going to give this advice to everyone is this doesn't go just for careers. Like open those doors for everything in your life that makes you happy.
I love it. Absolutely. So tell me about how because you eventually sold this company.
Yeah.
Um, w-
Last year, April.
so were you approached by and what kind of company? Like that's a whole other
Yeah,
thing. But
I know.
how did that happen?
I will say anyone who is running a company and selling it at the same time, kudos to you. Like, wow. I have such a new appreciation because I thought running a company alone was the hard part. But then when you're trying to sell it and you want to talk about the no's and like what breaks your spirit is trying to do that. It was the hardest year of my life. I did it in 8 months. I gave myself a year. I said, work hard, just do it's almost two jobs, but I was like,
Hmm.
do it in less than a year. So I gave myself a deadline because I was moving. And I think having a date and knowing that I was leaving to another city was something that just pushed me even harder. But, never owning a company, it worked out. And I never sold a company. I just told myself it's going to work out because it did the other jobs. Like something's going to pan through. Um, so what I did is the same process that never failed me is I started talking to people who sold companies. It's that same thing again, and I knew it was successful with my New York job. I knew it was successful when I started Sohan, and I knew it was gonna be successful when I sold it. And so I started talking to people who are entrepreneurs. I sold a company, sold multiple companies, and then I put together what I called my board of directors. And you grab your lawyer, you grab your accountant, you grab your broker. You form a team and you need the support because I'm a huge advocate of someone. If you don't know what that industry is, if you don't know, what that entails in terms of legal, financing, contracts, hire someone because there's so much you can do on your own. And when I'm running a company, I can't dive too deep into it because you're already tired and you
Right.
don't want to make mistakes. So I'm a huge component of bring the professionals together. Let them guide you. Let you lean on them. But build that board of directors together because I needed a lot of legal advice, financial advice, accounting advice, and a broker to sell it. Um, and so put your team together, get that support system, and then get the knowledge. Reach out to everyone and anyone. And I know it's crazy, but it's not like I had a lot of friends who sold companies. I had one friend and I'm like, oh, you sold it. Can I talk to you? Yep. So we talked. And I'm like, do you know anyone else? Oh, yeah, I have a friend here. Perfect. Can I get their number? Awesome. Do you don't mind if I call them? Okay, great. Called them, spoke to them. Do you know someone who sold a company? Do you know that process? And then, yep, I have one person. So every person gave me someone else. And
Wow.
that formed all those conversations. So I put that knowledge and information, the research of it in my back pocket. So then I was able to have those conversations with the finance person, the accountant, the lawyers, the brokers. And that was crucial. So I made sure to do the research, invest that time, kind of get me up to speed of what's it like to sell a company, pack myself with all that knowledge, then put the team together. And then that was it. And so we sold it in less than a year. It was in 8 months. So
Wow.
it hard work, but it panned out.
Hard work, discipline, organize, you have to be
Yeah.
really organized.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I mean, that is no easy thing that you
Yeah.
did. And it's pretty amazing that you built, this company out of nothing and
Yeah.
and then we're able to sell it like you did. So
Yeah, and I
amazing.
and I think telling everyone out there that those things are possible. Everyone's like, "Well, you have it." No, I'm coming from someone who has 0 experience as an entrepreneur, someone who has 0 experience selling a company. If I could do it, anyone can do it. What is it? It's the patience, the motivation, determination, and putting yourself out there and being okay when, you fall to just get back up. Being okay
Yeah.
to hear those no's. Because I remember my first call about selling the company and they were looking at my financials like, "No, it's not gonna happen." I mean, what is a pet concierge? So people didn't even understand the concept. And it wasn't tangible. When I was speaking to investors, they were like, well, it's not a product. I can't touch it. I'm like, I know, but it's 2023. You don't have to touch it.
Right. Right.
It's that social media of the world. It's not a physical thing. I don't have a physical store. I mean, this is the good part about it. And so some people didn't see that. They needed something tangible. They needed a storefront. Like that was what they needed. And I was like, okay, but you're not the right buyer then. And
Right.
so I had to
Exactly.
find the right buyer. And that you have to be okay with because all those no's, I could have been like, this isn't going to go anywhere. So I think that's the tough part. And one story that I always tell people is when COVID hit, all businesses, but also like small businesses, they suffered the most. The small businesses it was so difficult because the life of sustaining was harder because we were so small. So the support is not as prevalent as an airline company who's getting, help or assistance. So, you know, a shout out to all the small businesses who made it through the pandemic. But one thing that a lot of people actually don't know is, when the pandemic hit that March 16th, that Monday, that week that we all remember, on that Friday, I ended up meeting with the team, my board of directors, and I was about to put the company on the market. So I was ready to
Wow.
sell in when all that happened, 2020. Now on Sunday nights, so Friday I'm popping champagne, excited. This is it. I made the decision. We're gonna go. Sunday night, I'm getting all these emails and cancels. And I'm like, what's happening? By Monday, I lost 90% of my business.
Wow.
By Friday, all of my staff, under 20 of them, were no longer on payroll.
Wow.
That was it. In 5 days, my company went from profitable, we're gonna put it on the market, to nothing. And so I lost a lot of clients. I lost my team and, worked really, really hard with my business partner for 3 months. We built the company back up and little by little we rehired in that year. It was hard. The clients supported us. They rallied around us. The clients who were in the medical field actually ended up working, all the doctors and nurses at Tampa General ended up working double shifts. So they needed us even more. Nothing changed in their pet life, they needed us actually more because they were nonstop at the hospitals.
Right.
The seniors, nothing changed for them. They were still at home, bedbound or couldn't walk. They still needed us. So those were the two clienteles that, helped us get through it. And then we started having families call us where like, I'm overwhelmed. My kids are at home. I'm trying to teach them while doing a Zoom call. I can't do this anymore. And so we went in and helped them with that as well. And so it was fighting that balance. And then when everyone went back to work, they were like, "Oh my God, we need you again," because they were calling us back into the office. And then I guess the one silver lining to all of this is when COVID hit, all the shelters, because I work really closely with the Pet Resource Center and the Humane Society, all the shelters were clear. Everyone got a dog and cat. They were
Wow,
home.
that's right. Oh my
And they're like, "We need to
gosh.
fulfill something, or we have a backyard, or oh, if my kids are driving me crazy, this is time to get a
This
dog,
is the
keep them
time.
busy."
Yeah. Yeah.
So the one silver lining when people talk about COVID, I know there's so much like, negativity, sadness, that went with it, and it's valid. But the one silver lining I try to think about was all those shelters that cleared out.
Oh,
Like,
I
for the
love
first
that.
time, I mean, it's sad it
Yeah.
took a pandemic, because I'm a big rescue advocate, but that's what happened. And so what people are realizing was like, "Whoa, this is a lot to have a pet here. Now my house is full, we're all home," so they needed help. Then they went back to work, they're like, "Oh god, now I have a pet, and now I'm not home." So the business eventually grew, and it was successful, and I think those months that I was alone in the process of not having as many clients and not having my team, was heartbreaking. But I said, let me use this time to do all the things I never had time for. So I looked at my company from a bird's eye view and started changing everything, the structure, the handbooks, just everything. And investing more, time in the marketing plan, looking at the P&Ls deeper. And I think that those 3 months helped me sell my company and make it more, desirable, and put it on the market, and the demand was higher, I think because of that change. So I try to look at that moment of loss as a positive because maybe I wouldn't have sold it as, for that much, or maybe I wouldn't have had found the right buyers. And so there everything happens for a reason. So even at that hard time, and I will not lie, there was a week where I was like, I'm going to give up. I'm done. This is a sign I need to close the company and I need to find something else. I just held on a little longer, and then I saw things changing. And then I held on to that and just kept the company. And then lo and behold, sold it. And probably the most profitable year for us. And
Wow.
with that most success, because we ended up having more clients almost due to the pandemic. So it's kind of crazy how it all worked out.
Well, I think your perseverance and your discipline and your smarts really kind of took you through that because I think a lot of people would have given up. I
Yeah,
think
it's hard.
given that devastation of,
Yeah.
seeing your business
Yes.
basically
Yeah.
be gone in, 5
Yeah.
days, I think is that a lot of people would have just said,
Yeah.
I
And I
can't do
was
this. I have
there.
to
I
do
was
something else.
there.
I
Yeah, I
mean,
was there. So I challenge everyone when you're in that moment where you're there and it's so much easier to just walk away, just give it one more shot. And I'm thankful. And I think of that just like when I'm like, what would have happened if I went to Hawaii? I always think, what would have happened if I just walked away?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So
But you're amazing. I have so enjoyed this conversation
yeah,
and
so
I could talk
fun.
to you literally
I
forever.
know.
I
Yeah. I
really
forgot we were
could.
recording a podcast.
I know. Next
You're
time,
amazing.
next time cocktails have to be involved in this or something. I don't
I
know,
know.
but
Yeah, let's do this in person. But
it
no,
was
it's been
so
amazing.
you are just such a powerhouse and so inspirational. And I think that people that are listening are going to take away so many nuggets of good advice and good
Yeah,
information.
I hope
And
so. Even if I touch one person, one is enough for me because, I know it's hard out there and I know it's difficult and the struggle is real. But if, you just keep pushing through and kind of keep that positive mindset, I think the hard part is being positive when you're feeling so negative. That's the challenge.
that is really you know what, that's such a great comment, and being positive is always kind of the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
But when you find it in yourself to just kind of look at the bright side, look at
Yeah.
what's good, or how can I make this good? What's the positive here?
Yeah.
It changes your attitude, it changes your mind, it changes your
Yeah.
your outlook, and that's what everybody I think
Yeah.
really needs to work on. And it's not easy.
No.
But I love your energy. And I think that
Yeah.
that has taken you throughout all of these, wonderful
Yeah.
careers that you've had. So thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time
This has
today. I
been
really
amazing.
appreciate
Thank you.
you
And
being
you are
here.
amazing. So I know the listeners out there are going to love all these podcasts coming forward. And I can't wait to see who's the next guest.
Thank you. Thanks so much.